Well, I grew up in South Africa. I was born and grew up in South Africa. And in South Africa, not only did we have the gender challenge, but we also had apartheid. So I grew up during apartheid. So while there were fewer opportunities for women who were not white or people who were not white, also there were fewer opportunities for women because there were definite roles. So at school and looking at career choices at school, it was either nursing or teaching or it was secretarial work. I mean, there was never thinking beyond that, or being a housewife. So, I mean, so you could say that we probably had clear, sort of defined gender roles and jobs, career paths for women, even at that stage. But so I never envisaged that I would end up being in research and, a researcher in my career. Mm. Well, it was the choice was actually made for me when I finished high school. There was there was a time when the UK were looking to recruit sort of people to work in public services in the UK. So they used to do these recruitment drives, and they came to our school and did a recruitment drive around people who were interested in coming to do nursing in London. And it just sounded very exciting to go to London and train as a nurse. I mean, had no idea whether that was really what I wanted to do. I think I always had an idea that I wanted to teach, because I always, my mother was a teacher, and I think I always felt that that would be my career path. So the choice was made for me. So I had the opportunity to leave South Africa and to study abroad. I came to London, did my nursing, and then did a master. The nursing was mainly in community health, and then did a master's in education, and then a PhD in education and community health. So the career path kind of found itself, if you like, but it was really starting with nursing, but ended up in higher education through PhD studies. Yes, I mean, in the UK there were fewer challenges. I mean, I think it was at a time when there was really building a critical mass of people like nursing and teachers. So if there were lots of opportunity for women, and there was not a lot of sort of there were challenges, but also it was probably easier because I was in a sort of mainly female-dominated career, sort of career. So but the challenges came when I went as a PhD student to go back to Africa. So I returned to Africa to work in Africa with African scientists and looking at their career paths, and not specifically women, but just across the board. And the challenges that I saw firsthand, and even myself as a PhD student, and then as a postdoc going back and forth to Africa and working in science, you find, I mean, one of the biggest challenges was credibility. People, as a woman, working in Africa and particularly in science or in higher education, there is always that feeling that you maybe don't know as much as the men, especially in a male-dominated environment. So as a woman, you're fighting harder to, have that credibility. So you're having to constantly work and keep your visibility up, and constantly work at influencing people. So I think some of the biggest challenges, I mean, for example, if you went to meetings, it'll be a room full of sort of male women and men, and yet the women will be the ones who were having to sort out the tea breaks, work out the agenda to see if the projector works. Well, it didn't seem to be a man's role to do that, whereas you're the same level in terms of your career. And yet it fell on the woman to do this, because I think just because you were the woman in the room, and it felt that naturally your role was to make sure that everything worked, especially the tea and the lunches, So that was one of the things I think that really stuck out in my mind. Mm. I mean, Yeah, I didn't actually have as many home challenges as the African women scientists have in Africa, based in Africa. I had a very supportive husband, and when I traveled out, he didn't see me for weeks, but that was fine. We kept in touch, and sort of as communication in media got better with Skype and WhatsApp, you were able to keep in touch a bit more. But I mean, certainly. African women scientists, I mean, one of the challenges also is managing the home challenges, family and work. So, mm-hmm. I think it definitely influences the choices you make, because you have this other dimension of having to make sure that things are working at home before you can travel out. So whereas I think with male counterparts, they can, pack a bag, get on a plane and go and can be away. But for women, it is about making sure that the children are okay, there's somebody to look after them, you've worked out things, and especially if you're leaving a husband behind or a male partner, then you're having to make sure that they're okay as well, so that they're not, sort of feeling that you're going off. But yes, you do influence, and maybe you look at what your travel involves, and whether it's something that's really important for you to be at, or maybe not as important. Whereas I think, from a male perspective, you can take up all the opportunities without having that additional, role that you have to play with making sure that everything's okay at home. I think there's definitely a case in that. And I think not just in Africa, I think, sort of globally, it is a case. I mean, the fact that you see fewer women, sort of CEOs or directors, and, I mean, and if you actually come, have a country where you have a woman prime minister or a woman in charge, then quite a big thing is made about that. It's not a normal day, thing that happens. So I think definitely. I mean, they're definitely. I mean, it's some ways it's done very subtly, where maybe you're passed over because I don't know. I mean, for various reasons. But certainly in the UK, and I think other parts of the world, it's it's meant to be illegal. That it's a level playing field, and it's fair, and people are appointed to posts and high level posts to do their experience, and but I mean, it does make you wonder whether there's something else at play. But I mean, it's you never see that. But that said, I mean, in some countries in Africa, there's certainly females that are in high positions, and politically, and in education, and in business, and it does seem to work, and getting there. It's probably a harder journey up the ladder than would be for male counterparts. But yes, I mean, there are, women who do get up there. Mhm. So I think for the young scientists coming up the ladder is to persevere and not give up. I mean, I think there is that feeling where you're knocked back a lot of the times, and particularly finding your way is quite hard, is not to give up. Just build as much confidence as you can, so that you can have the capital to project yourself. And even though, and also to be able to learn how to manage those male domination, not dominated environments. I mean, even if it means having to say no to certain things because you need to focus on your career path, and getting up the ladder that way. I mean, the challenges are not resolved or easy sidestep, but there are ways that you can do it, just raising your visibility. For the scientists who are sort of struggling to find funding and getting published, and I mean, for them, it's a hard role for a scientist, I think, whether you're male or female, because I think, sort of male scientists probably get knocked back as much about getting funding or getting published as in the same challenges that female scientists do. I think again, just persevere. And I think, I mean, I'm pleased to say that I've been working with African scientists now for the last 12 years. And in more recently, I'm so pleased to see that things are actually getting better, in terms of things like making sure that there's a lot more gender awareness in applications. So, positively, making sure that women scientists are not favored out of turn because they don't have the skills or the experience, but making sure that there's an equal playing field and they have just as many opportunities, whether it's training or applying for programs or not necessarily funding, because funding is on, it doesn't matter who's applying for the funding, but it's, the merits of the proposal is what gets you the funding. And I think for them, it's just about persevering. I think one piece of advice I would say is really to find a good mentor to help you. I mean, and particularly someone who's been through the same or similar journey than you. So, there's a lot of female African scientists out there who are really good mentors on the fact that you have to manage a whole lot of things at home. But I think it's really about making sure that you raise your visibility, work as hard as you can, and just make sure that you're there and you're able to influence much more than you would if you'd given up. So it's about perseverance, good mentorship, making sure that you find somebody who particularly has been through a similar journey than you, that you have. So, they're able to identify a bit more and just to help you to give you some advice or support, or just tell their story of how they did it and how, their journey went and the kind of, sort of loopholes and potholes that they came across and how you get over those or round them. Not everything you can get over, but you might be able to sidestep and go around, so just that kind of advice I think is really, really important. Yeah.